Clay. Welcome to another League of Legends video. This time we're doing a why buy on Syndra, the Dark Sovereign. She is a burst mage who is pretty snazzy and definitely a champion who I personally think is in a pretty strong spot right now. And she's someone that I predict we will see a little bit of play in the upcoming LCS split in the beginning of Season 4. I think she's going to prove herself to be quite a powerful champion. Very bursty. He's got some good lane bullying. She's very, very strong in lane hard. A lot of champions are going to have a hard time dealing with her lane pressure. She's got fantastic burst once she hits level 6, able to 100 to 0 characters very easily. She's got great farming, great pushing, great wave clear. Just overall a lot of tools. She even has quite a bit of utility in her kit with AoE stun and slow, and just a lot of good things going on for her. But anyways, let's get into her skills and abilities and we can figure out exactly what is going on. This game I'm playing her in the mid lane against Pantheon. A little bit of a disclaimer, mid lane is generally not my strongest. These AP mages I think are a little bit tricky. I play a lot of AD carry, and so this whole playstyle is a little bit different where you're relying much less on your auto attacks and much more on your abilities. And on top of that, I personally believe that Syndra is one of the most difficult high skill cap champions to play in all league. Just because she's all skill shots there. I'm going all in on Pantheon. Not quite, actually. Gonna go ahead and flash, get one more Q, and oh man, a flash auto probably would have taken him out because he is so low right now. Yeah, under 70 HP. That's pretty absurd. But anyways, as I was saying, she's one of the highest skill cap champions in the game, for undoubtedly. Somebody who, she's very skill shot reliant, very very combo reliant. You have to combo her abilities together properly to really get the most out of her. And so it just makes her really, like I said, high skill cap champion to play. So if you can land her skill shots and get the most out of her, her damage and her utility are pretty unprecedented. So anyways, let's get into her skills and abilities and figure out exactly why she is who she is. So first up, her passive, Transcendent. Basically what happens is every time she maxes an ability, it looks like Volibear is coming for a gank, and I'm going to flash away. Don't want to mess with any of that shenanigans. But anytime you max out a spell, you gain an extra effect onto it, and each spell gives a different effect. With your Q, your Dark Sphere, this is your main damage ability. It will deal 15% bonus damage to champions. That's probably the best part about this spell, or about this passive, that it allows you to get that bonus damage to champions, which is really nice because your Dark Sphere is on a really low cooldown, so increasing its damage against champions is really nice. Next up would be her W. This would increase the slow duration by 33%. This actually makes it a very, very strong slow at max rank. Now we're talking about a max rank of slow that's 45%, so increasing it by 33, I believe, puts it at 80%, if I'm doing the math correctly, and 80% slow is very strong. I believe that in terms of slows, we've got Onassis' Wither, which is actually kind of like a stun, because I believe it's like a 99% slow. But then you have Lulu's Q, which I believe is an 80% slow, and then I believe Syndra, as well, with her maxed out W, is one of the most, I guess, devastating slows in the game. So now you're probably going to want to max this ability either second or third, so not going to get the most use out of it like you would out of your Q. However, still a pretty strong part of her kit. Next up would be her E, her Scatter the Weak. This is kind of her AoE knockback and stun ability. And when you max this ability out, the spell width is increased by 50%. So the cone kind of reminds me of like Annie's cone on her W. The width of that cone gets increased, which is really nice, especially when you get into team fights, getting that AoE knockback. And if you get a couple of your balls on the ground, what are they called? Dark spheres on the ground, then you can really get some nice AoE stuns going on. So that's definitely a good effect, and actually this is one of the reasons why I like to max her E second, to more quickly get this increased spell width, because I value that more than the increased slow. And then last up would be the Unleashed Power, her ultimate. She gains 75 range, and that's really nice, especially when you move into a team fighting phase, when it's often very dangerous to try and get your ultimate off, because it's probably one of your shortest range spells. At 675, so bumping that up to 750 is really nice because it really allows her to stay safe and stay back out of harm's way during team fights. She is very positionally dependent, one of the most positionally dependent champions in the game. And you're going to want to get a couple of her Dark Spheres out there. I'm actually going to use my ultimate right there It looks like Pantheon actually stayed in lane. I'm not sure why, but just walked up, hit him with a Q, ultimate ignite, and easily finished him off. He actually had managed to stay in lane. I got him under 70 HP, but he just regened it all back up with his flask and his pots and stayed in lane that whole time, which is kind of crazy, but it definitely cost him in the end. So anyways, that's her passive. I actually think this passive is a little bit on the weak side in the world of passives. It doesn't do anything for her in lane before level 9, and that's pretty late to have, you know, your passive kick in. If you think about other champions and their passives, you know, they'll do a lot for them all throughout the game. But with Syndra, it's more of like gives her bigger power spikes when she maxes out her abilities. So I don't know. It's okay. It's an okay passive, but definitely not the best. Next up will be her Q, Dark Sphere. This is her main damage source. It's on a very low 4-second cooldown. It does pretty high base damage. It scales with a 60% AP ratio, so just overall a very solid ability. And basically what this is, you target an area on the ground, and then you will deal damage in a little AoE circle around that target. There is a brief delay before the damage actually hits, but so you actually used it right there, and then it will actually create a Dark Sphere, which will sit on the ground for 6 seconds. And then you can use those Dark Spheres with her W, with her E, or with her ultimate. So this is kind of like the really the core part of her kit that sets everything else up. You know, you really want to make sure you are managing where your Dark Spheres are at and kind of keeping track of them because they're very important. You know, it's very integral to her playstyle. So, yeah, and especially once you get some mana regen, it's kind of good to actually spam this a little bit and get quite a number of Dark Spheres on the ground, just because they benefit your W and your E so much, and your ultimate, that it's very important to have as many Dark Spheres out as you can. Oh, I actually flashed in there to try and ult Pantheon, but I did not manage my mana very well this game, and so it was out of mana for a lot of this laning phase. And that's kind of just a random tidbit. Whenever I feel like I'm not very comfortable on a champion, I find that I tend to go out of mana quite frequently because I'm not used to managing their spell costs. So that's definitely something that happened this game. You know, like I said, Syndra is not a champion I play a ton, but she is a strong champion. And actually, here comes another Volibear gank, so I'm just going to go all in on Pantheon, and I'm in trouble. So, got caught out of position there without a ward. And Volibear's been spending a lot of time mid lane, but I've been managed to dodge most of his damage up till now, but unfortunately... Oh, a nice little duel right here. Look at that, Misfortune. Is she going to pick this up? Is somebody going to pick this up? There we go, right there, with the nice use of the ultimate. So way to go, bot lane. That was a nice turnaround right there. But anyways, back to Syndra. So that's her Q, main damage source. You're definitely going to want to max this first. It's your best ability for poking and harassing in lane. It's your best ability for farming. You know, it's just, and it augments your other spells really nicely. You know, it's just a very core part of her kit, so you want to definitely gain a hold of this. And this is one of the reasons why she's got such a high skill cap, because this is not an easy spell to land. It has that little bit of a delay. It's a ground targeting ability, you know, so it's not even like a lined skill shot like a Nidalee Spear. It's like a Cassiopeia Q or something like that, where you must target the ground properly. So, but anyway, still a strong ability overall nonetheless, and if you can land it consistently, you're going to do a lot of damage. Next up will be her W, Force of Will. This is a 2-part ability. On initial cast, you will grab either an enemy minion or pet or one of your own Dark Spheres, and then on second cast, you will throw it to the location of your cursor, similar to her Q, where you target an area on the ground. And then if it hits enemies, they will be slowed. So this is probably one of the most interesting and fun abilities in League. I used it right there, throwing one of my Dark Spheres onto Pantheon, but it does a lot of cool things for her kit. It's just a very fun and interesting ability to use. And here Pantheon goes ham on me, so I hit him with a Q, Ultimate, Ignite, Auto Attack, and one more Q right there is going to pick him off, just leading him a little bit with my Q to make sure that I get the kill. Because when he turned up towards my turret, or towards his own turret, then I knew his direction, and then I could safely land that Q for the kill. Anyways, back to Force of Will. So you grab a target, and this can work on a lot of interesting things. You know, you can use it on enemy minions. You can use it on jungle camps. Even blue buff and red buff will work. You cannot do it on dragon and baron, however, but those other things will work. You can use it on enemy pets, things like I believe Tibbers, like Heimerdinger turrets. You know, Yorick ghouls, those types of things, I believe, can be affected by this Force of Will. And it's just a really fun spell where you just pick something up and you chuck it, and it's just really cool to use. And the slow as well is really useful. Having an AoE slow is very powerful. They were using it right there to try to get a slow off on Graves, doing a little bit of a roam here, but unable to actually get this. And actually, one more thing that I actually forgot to mention on her Q, and I believe this applies with her W as well, but Syndra does not have to stop moving to cast spells. This is one of the more interesting things about her kit that most other champions do not have. It looks like Pantheon actually jumped in. Got a double kill, so I got to defend this tower. But most other champions have to stop for a split second and have like a little miniature cast time when they throw out their spell. But Syndra can cast, I believe, her W and her Q and even probably her E without actually stopping her movement, which is really cool. And it makes her, that's one of the reasons why her laning is so strong, is because she can be so constantly dodging and moving, and she doesn't ever have to stop moving. She can just keep, keep herself in motion, and it makes her very slippery to deal with because she never has to stop. So looks like we're going to pick up this dragon here. So anyways, that's Force of Will. It's a really fun ability to use, and I tend to, you can like clear out a minion wave really quickly if you Q the back line, then W it, and then Q it again. You know, that's one of the best ways to, and maybe even throwing out an E right there. You know, those 3 spells with 2 Qs is going to almost, so right there you can see I actually Q'd the front minion waves. Then I actually threw a W on the ranged minions, and then I threw an E through the whole thing and pretty much cleared the whole wave. So her pushing potential is really, really good. Now, personally, I like to max this ability last because I feel like her E has better base damage, and it's more useful early on for harassment in lane. And I feel like the W, it's one of those things where if you land the stun on your E, it's a lot easier to land your W than vice versa, where if you land the slow from your W, you're not always guaranteed to land the stun on your E. So that's kind of my take there, but you can definitely max this second. This also is her best scaling ability in terms of ability power scaling. Her Q is a 60%, but this is a 70%, so very, very high damage scaling into late game. And then her E is her Scatter the Weak. This is her main utility spell, using it right there. It's a kind of a cone-shaped knockback. And actually here I'm getting ganked, so I'm just going to flash away, but it's a cone-shaped knockback. So any champions that are within range of the cone are knocked back. But then if it interacts at all with her Q, her Dark Spheres that are on the ground, they will actually stun. Actually right there, let's actually watch this one more time. This, I saw Kha'Zix here doing Raze, and so I'm pinging onto Pantheon for him to go super ham. I use my ultimate, I use my ignite, and then Kha'Zix jumps in very nicely, so good coordination right there between the two of us to assassinate that target. I knew I didn't have the damage myself, but I knew that with his help I could finish him off, and now it looks like he's going on Volibear, so I'm going to come try and help him out. There's a QE, and going to pick up that kill right there with a nice QE combo, and Kha'Zix with a very nice flash over the wall. This Kha'Zix was actually a very strong player, and so good stuff from him. Getting a lot of pressure on this mid lane. Might even be able to take this tower. Anyways, back to Scatter of the Weak. If one of your Dark Spheres will also get knocked back with the knockback, and if it collides with an enemy, they will be stunned for 1.5 seconds. So a really useful ability. It definitely can be a little hard to hit because you definitely have to line up. You see using it right there to clear out those minions. You have to really make sure that your aim is on. It's a very weird aim system where you kind of have to line up yourself and your Dark Spheres and then throw out your E, and it's just a very interesting and kind of odd spell. But it's very, very powerful. And so my tip with the landing the stuns from the Scatter of the Weak, it looks like I'm probably not going to get this blue buff. I just don't have the mana. I've been out of mana all game, and I desperately would like a blue buff. But Kha'Zix was doing really well, and when you're playing a carry-style jungler, I kind of understand the desire to not give blue buffs away, but I really, really could have used them this game. But alas, what can you do? Not much. But anyways, so with Scatter of the Weak, the best way that I have found to consistently land the stun is to, if you are about to land your Q, and if you you can usually tell when it's about to land, and if you are about to land your Q, then immediately throwing an E into it will 9 times, almost 9.5 times out of 10 pick up the stun, just because if you landed the Q, they're still kind of in range of that Dark Sphere, and then when you knock it back, then you'll get the stun. So that's the best way that I would say to get a consistent stun going is to, there's the nice wave clear combo right there with the starting off with the W and then the QE. Yeah, so anyways, definitely try to get him hold of, especially in lane. This is a really, really strong harassment combination where you throw down your Q, and if you land it, you immediately follow it up with an E. Then you can throw a W on top of them, and then perhaps land another Q. So that kind of is the basic combo right there, is a QE, and then throw down the W, and then follow up with another Q, is generally the combo that I like to go for personally. There are a lot of different ways you can chain her abilities together, but you see right there, trying to land the stun onto that support Nami, but wasn't able to quite get things lined up. And in situations like that, I feel like it's a little hard where you've got like a dark sphere on the ground, you're trying to line things up properly. It's a little bit tricky to do that, so that's why I kind of prefer. There's a nice QE right there, and actually it looks like I am going to go all in and use my ult and got her down to about 200 HP, but not quite low enough to pick up the kill, unfortunately. So anyways, that's her E. Next up will be her ultimate. Unleash Power, I just used it right there on the Nami. It's just a targeted ability, her only non-skill shot ability. And it looks like actually we're getting a catch onto Pantheon. And, oh, I do manage to get the long-range stun, forcing him to flash, but my W is in the wrong direction. There's a Q right there, just to chunk him down even lower. And this is a really big fight. Going to get a QE right there, get the stun on Volibear. And just, again, just using my Qs and my QEs to be really annoying. There's a W right there. Trying to really maximize my utility with my stuns from my E, my damage from my Qs. There's chunking down Graves very nicely, getting a stun right there onto the Nami, and just trying to poke them down under the tower. Syndra is very good at this with these long-range QEs. There's a Q right there, just chunking Graves down very low and quite nicely. I'm going to get to this ultimate in just a minute, but I think there's a fight about to happen, and I don't want to miss it. But anyways, so about her ultimate, it's just a point-and-click ultimate. And actually I get bubbled, and there's the engage right there from Volibear. Let's go ahead and watch this in slow motion. And I'm actually in quite a bit of trouble, but fortunately I managed to, my flash comes up just at the right moment. And check this out right here. Graves flashes in, but I greet him with a nice QE with a double stun right there. And gonna go ahead and pick up those kills. And looks like also Pantheon is trying to jump, but Kha'Zix go ahead and finishes that off. And so a very nice play right there from our team. It's going to go ahead and turn that fight around. Even though I got caught out, it definitely was a good outcome, and able to pick up a kill onto Graves. So anyways, finally getting back to her ultimate. It is a point-and-click ability, and then she will summon the 3 dark spheres that surround her. You can see these dark spheres are surrounding her at all times. Those 3 are the minimum, and then any other dark spheres that are on the ground in her vicinity will also be channeled, and then she deals magic damage per dark sphere. That's kind of the big thing to note. You get 90 up to 180 base damage per sphere, plus a 20% ability power ratio. So the minimum damage at max rank is 540 plus 60 AP, and that by itself is a little bit lackluster, but it says the maximum here is 7 dark spheres, and that's going to give you 1,260 base damage with 140% AP ratio, and that is probably one of the most devastating single target burst spells in the game. If you can get out that number of dark spheres on the ground, you're going to absolutely wreck people in their faces. So if you're going for the burst build, you really want to try and master the timing on this ability, and there I'm actually using my ultimate right there just to kind of push Pantheon away, but this is not the burstiest of builds. This is more of the utility build, so my one-shot potential isn't quite as high as other times. But anyways, the best thing to keep in mind with this ability is that you really, really want to use it when you have at least 4 dark spheres on the ground. There's no reason to ever use it with just 3. You always want to get at least 4, and ideally I would like to see 5. Now, in terms of doing the math, I'm not actually sure if it would be possible to get more than 6, and actually if those of you who are experienced with Syndra, and actually don't watch this part because I get caught out, and just a very bad positioning for me is going to lead me to my death. Yeah, that was bad. I thought my team was kind of mulling around in the jungle, and they kind of were, but I think Kha'Zix just recalled, and Teemo was, I don't know what he was doing, but it's just a poor play on my part, nonetheless. But anyways, back to her ultimate. So, if she's got a 4-second cooldown Q, let's say she gets 40% CDR, I believe that would take it to 2.4 seconds, 2.6 seconds, something like that. So let's round that to 2 seconds just for the easiness of the math. If your dark spheres last for 6 seconds, that means you can get 3 dark spheres on the ground at one time. Add that with the 3 dark spheres that are circling her, and that's 6. And even that is a little bit impossible because you can't actually have more than 3 just because the cooldown reduction never actually gets you to 2 seconds. So when I run the math in my head, I don't see how it's possible to realistically get more than 6, and even 5 is like, I would say, really good. So in my mind, when I play Syndra, I always shoot for 5. So my combo with when I want to go for the kill would be as follows. I would start off with the Q plus E to get the Dark Sphere on the ground, and then use it to stun my opponent. Then, once I land the stun, then I'm going to follow it up with the W, then wait for the cooldown on my Q to come back, use it again, and then throw down the ultimate, and then follow it up lastly with an Ignite if needed. So then you're getting 2 Dark Spheres from your Q, following that up with the 3 Dark Spheres surrounding you. That's going to give you 5 Dark Spheres for a really nice bit of damage. And here you can see I'm actually just really chunking these guys down, and here's a nice little QE right there to get a nice stun onto Graves and get a nice bit of damage. But so at least when I run the math in my head, 5 Dark Spheres is as good as it gets, but I'm not as experienced with Syndra, so there definitely is a possibility that I could be wrong. And there's a nice QE as well to get that stun. Syndra has very nice poke and harassment under the tower. So anyways, let me know if I'm wrong, but that's my thought process. There's the knockback right there, and going to try and kite backwards away from this team fight. Mundo is charging our backline very heavily, but I'm trying to kite him as best as I can. Can use the ultimate. Just because it probably wasn't the best idea to ult Mundo, but there's a nice AoE CC, or stun right there from my E, and there's a nice Q onto Volibear and Mundo, and Leona is going to flash. There's a nice double stun right there. Again, just trying to use my slow for my W and the stun on my E to just kite these champions back as much as possible. There's another nice dual stun. I've had 3 or 4 nice stuns from my E over the course of this fight, just trying to use my utility and my kite potential to my benefit. I went for a Rylai's Crystal Scepter so that I'm getting a lot of slows both on my Q, obviously on the W is going to be empowered, and then even on the E, although I think the slow will run out by the time the stun comes up. So mostly just getting the slows on my Qs, which is still really nice because then I can pretty much permanently slow people if I so choose. But anyways, that was a good fight for us. He was trying to just kite and help my team out with my utility there. So basically those are her abilities. Now, let's talk a little bit about itemization, because it definitely affects her abilities. Now, I would say there are 2 main ways to build Syndra. One would be the LCS Pro, really experienced players going for the heavy burst build. So then you're going to focus on rushing a Deathfire Grasp, getting a Revenant's Death Cap, and then following up with a Void Staff. Once you get those 3 core items, you can pretty much 100 to 0 almost anyone in the game. And anytime your ultimate comes up, you're going to have massive kill potential. Again, using the Deathfire Grasp, QE, WQ, Ultimate Ignite, you're going to be able to kill any champion in the game, pretty much, except for even maybe the most tanky. But still, your damage is going to be through the roof. But so that kind of a build is definitely viable and probably the strongest way to play her, because it really maximizes her unique strengths. Actually, I think I had 6 Dark Spheres on the ground there. If I saw that correctly, I'm sorry guys, I want to see this because I'm so let's see here. Watch. I'm actually going to pause this right there. So you see, I believe if I'm adding this correctly, there are 3 Dark Spheres there and 3 Dark Spheres surrounding me. So it looks like I can have 6. So must have interesting. I'm not exactly sure. But anyways, back to build. So if you're going to go for the heavy burst build, then you're looking to one-shot people, and kind of be an assassin is really what you are there. Is a ranged, it's kind of like a Veigar styled, where you're just trying to blow people up with your combo. Again, that would be QE, WQ, R, and you can throw the Deathfire Grasp at the beginning and the Ignite at the end if you need. But then the other build is the one I went for, which is more of the utility-focused build. And the utility build is more focusing on having plenty of mana and cooldown reduction with the Athene's Unholy Grail. I also picked up a Rylai's to give me another slow and to give me some additional health. Because Syndra doesn't have any escapes, she can be a little risky to play, so this kind of helps minimize, I think, the difficulty in playing her. The burst build is a very high skill cap build, but this build that I'm going for is a little more utility focused and a little more forgiving. But here's a really big team fight. Just trying to use my Qs and there's a nice couple of Qs and Ws to just slow my opponents as much as I possibly can. There's a QE right there to get a nice 2-man stun on their tanks, forcing Mundo to flash away. And again, just trying to use my utility as much as I possibly can to help my team out. But as I was saying, so for the utility-based build, you want to get the mana and the CDR from the Athenes. You want to get the Rylai's for the additional crowd control and the health. And then after this, standard AP items you could even do like a Leandry's would not be terrible. Give you even more health, magic pen, and just a lot of good stats there. I actually chunked Pantheon down with my ultimate, and Kha'Zix came in and finished him off. Now continuing to kite with my slows and my knockbacks and my stuns, and just providing a lot of utility to my team. But this build is a little bit more forgiving, a little bit easier for newer players, but definitely not as deadly. So it's kind of a personal preference there. I just kind of I don't feel as confident on Syndra, especially with the Deathfire Grasp and properly getting out all of my burst combos. So I went for this this utility-based build. But anyways, so with Syndra, she's got a really high amount of damage. With her 3 main spells plus her ultimate, her burst is really, really high. All 3 of her abilities have high base damage, and on top of that, she also has great utility, which are really her biggest strengths is damage plus utility. She's one of the best champs. She's got wave clear, she's got lane bullying. She's just got a great combination of a lot of very desirable stats. The trade-off, however, is she's very hard to play, and she also is has no escapes. So that's kind of her big downfall, is that she can have a hard time against high mobility, heavy engaged champions that can get on top of her. She just can get blown up because she has no escape outside of her E for the knockback. But she still, if you feel very confident, if you feel like you can position very correctly, positioning is extremely crucial on Syndra. If you can position yourself properly, if you can land some difficult skill shots and you can combo your abilities together, Syndra is a very, very powerful mage. Great burst, great utility, great team fighting, great laning. She could 100 to 0. She can do a lot of different things and makes her a very strong champion. So anyways, I hope that this did justice. Not the flashiest game in the world, 4, 2, and 9, but leading the game in assists is I'll take that, because I was definitely going for more of the utility-based build this game to try and help my team out. I felt like we had enough damage with Teemo, Kha'Zix, and Misfortune. We had plenty of damage, and what we felt like we really needed was the kiting and the the disengage. Really, is to keep because their team with Mundo and Volibear, they're very reliant on just running at you, and so if I can disengage them with my slows and my knockbacks, I really felt like I was going to do a service to my team rather than just being able to one-shot Graves. Is kind of my thought process here. But anyways, that is Syndra. Definitely a champion that we should keep our eyes on, because I think if people can figure her out and kind of get a feel for her, I think she can be a very powerful pick. She, like I said, she brings a lot to teams and definitely can be a strong champion. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts down below on Syndra, and I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.